Know that the effective path and a safety system can save businesses, obviously, money and keep your teams safer at work. But the path to CORE, the Certificate of Recognition, or as we call it, OSSE, may feel steep. So today, we've invited ARTMS VP of Operations, Oddy Trillo, to learn how they are preparing their path towards OC and how Oddy, sorry, has been able to continue to motivate his team along the way. But first, our OHS manager, Hassan Nedahende, will set the stage by sharing some do's and don'ts around the core or OC certification process. So, welcome this morning, Hassan.
Good morning, everybody. I'm so glad to get a chance to talk about core OC certification. Let's just start with the introductory slide here. First of all, what we call core or certificate of recognition is a voluntary program that has been established by WorkSafe BC in 2002. It's not a new program. And the main intention of this program is to recognize and promote all employers who decided to establish a comprehensive OHS management system. In 2006, WorkSafe BC concluded that this is a useful program for all industry sectors. At the beginning, they started this program just in construction, but after 2006, they said it could be really valuable to all other industries as well. That's why they chose Manufacturing Safety Alliance as one of the certifying partners in manufacturing sectors to develop and promote the core program. What we did in MSABC or Alliance, we just customized the core program for manufacturing industries, and we also enhanced the requirements to make it more productive and effective, in manufacturing context as well. And we just called it Occupational Safety Standard of Excellence. So technically, when we talk about core or OC, we are talking about the same things here. Okay. So in regards to the benefits of the certification and what is in it for you, if you decide to get the certification, you can imagine the benefits from different windows. One of the most important benefit that we should always, keep in mind is the good news is based on the statistics that have been published by WorkSafe BC. If you compare the core OC certified companies with non-certified companies, we are showing 20% less injuries and injury claims, in core OC certified companies. That is one of the most important benefit that keeps actually WorkSafe BC and us, encouraging to promote this program all over British Columbia. Besides that, in order to keep employers also motivated, WorkSafe PC also introduced some incentives program. One of the common and favorite incentive program is 10% rebate that they are promising to always, credit back to all the core OC certified companies. This is not a one-time credit, it is a lifetime credit, which means as far as you have your valid certificate, you would be eligible to get that 10% rebate out of your premium that you're paying to WorkSafe PC annually. Besides that, we also have 15% insurance rebate. That is a kind of fairly new program that we introduced in Manufacturing Safety Alliance. What it is if you get your core OC certificate, we can just match the premium that you pay for your infrastructure insurance like fire insurance, earthquake, and so with 15% less premium. Besides that, we can also imagine other important benefits as well, like having a valid certificate is one of the strongest evidence for all supervisors and management to prove that they already did their portion of duties. Because in case of any serious accidents, you really need to make sure and provide enough evidence to WorkSafe BC that management team and supervisors did their portion of duties. Then they go to the next level of the investigation. So having a valid certificate is a really strong proof in this regard. And eventually, as we are expecting the less interruption and less injuries, we can expect the reliable performance in the employer's performance, in the business performance as well. So, with considering all the benefits, if by any chance you decide to think about getting that certificate, first of all, you are not alone in this process. We are with you with lots of support and resources that we provide. I can just summarize the steps in 4 or 5 main steps that you can consider. And regarding any of those steps, please feel free. If you have any questions, please feel free to scan that QR code with your cell phone. It directly takes you to the page that you can simply just send us your request. We are more than happy to talk about any of those steps in more details. First step is ICOR registration. In order to formally show us and show WorkSafe PC that your intention is to go through the certification process, we need to create a placeholder in WorkSafe PC portal, and we will let WorkSafe PC know that this company or this employer already has started, thinking about core OC, and they are at the beginning stage of the journey. There is no commitment by registering in ICOR, and it's fully free. All you need to do is we can just send us the quick request, and then we will invite you to fill out 2 pages of the forms online. And based on that, we can just work with WorkSafe PC, register your employer there. This is a very basic step. The next step is we will be having a free 1 hour workshop, to the safety representatives of the employers. And over there, we will go over the whole certification process in good detail. And over there, we also introduce the tools and checklists that you need to be familiar with, to understand the requirements and programs that you really need to establish. This workshop is also free. The only thing you need to do is just scan your QR code and let us know, and we would be more than happy to set up this workshop for you. The third step is you just need to understand where you are in terms of the requirements. So that is what we call readiness review, and it is also free. We just work with you in OHS audit department to help you estimate your score, because the core system I will show you in the next slide goes by the scoring system. If you achieve a threshold, you can consider yourself as an eligible employer to get the certificate. So in that free collaboration that we will be doing with you, we would like to make sure where are you in terms of the requirements, and what type of gaps you need to fill to make sure that you have a decent OHS management system. The fourth step is when you completed that readiness review, now is about time to take actions. And at the end of step 3, we will give you a high level, action plan as well that lists all the actions that you need to take. So in many actions, you may say that, okay, we have enough knowledge and enough resources that we can take actions ourselves. Or in some cases, you may need some help. For instance, you say that, oh, okay, I need to establish a confined space program, for instance. But I don't have a good template to adopt, and I don't have a good program. So over there, we can introduce you to our service department, and they would be working with you to give you all the templates, all the technical advisories that you may need to fill the gaps. So this is something that we need to establish a clear, analysis of your gaps. Then we will decide what type of support we can provide to make sure that you are okay. So eventually it's up to you to decide in which type of actions you need to use our help or use other resources that you have to fill the gap. And the last step is the auditing. Eventually, you need to formally, go over all the questions and just provide the score. The auditing is a little bit different based on what type of companies you are. If you are a large company or large employer, which is more than 20 employees, if you have more than 20, WorkSafe PC and also us would consider you a large employer. For the large employer, we have a dedicated checklist. You also need to use a third-party auditor to come to your place and audit your company. So we have another webinar. We had another webinar, a few months ago that we went through lots of details about that auditing process also. And our marketing team would share the link with you pretty soon, and you're welcome just to go over that webinar as well and just watch it. And over there, you can have a good understanding of the whole certification process for large employers. But the big difference is if you have less than 20 employees, we may categorize you as a small or micro. Micro is less than 9 and a small is 10 to 19. The big difference is for micro and small, everything would be based on self-declaration. It's like how we file our tax with CRA, right? It's all based on self-declaration unless there is a specific reason that, WorkSafe PC or us may pick your system to go through more details. So you just need to fill out the checklist. We have a more streamlined and a little bit, lighter checklist in terms of the questions for micro and small. And it's a very interesting process. All you need to do is you just need to take step 1 to 4 that I explained. Then in the auditing purpose step, you can just fill out the form yourself and just give us your score. And as soon as you achieve the threshold, you would be good for certification. So what is the threshold here? Generally, the way that we structure the checklist comes with different sections. The threshold in each section is you need to achieve 50%, and your total score should be 80. As soon as you achieve 50% in each section and total 80 scores in the full audit checklist that the system would calculate for you, you're eligible for certification. Again, for more details, I would like to refer you to another webinar that we had, and we would be happy to share the link with you. So let's just talk about the implementation strategy a little bit. Many people may consider the best sequence of the establishing of the system is to go by alphabetical order from A to I, but it's not always the case. Here is our recommendation. If you want to establish your system, it's a very good idea to always start with Section A. Why Section A is important? Section A contains lots of questions and requirements that make sure that your management team, specifically the top management, are on the same page with you regarding the resources that they need to provide and regarding the high-level objectives and KPIs that they need to establish and monitor regarding all the authority and roles and responsibilities that they need to actually clarify. These are all the leadership steps. You need to always start. I mean, the best way to always start with Section A. Then the next step, which is very important, is Section H and F, which is all about team building. You need to make sure that you have a good team to really help the safety officers to establish and develop the system. Many people, maybe make a mistake and say that, okay, establishing a safety system is all the safety team job. No, it's really everybody's job, to establish and contribute in establishing the system. That's why we say that Section H and F is very important. Section H talks about the best way that you can create your JHST committee. Many important, decisions should be made through the committee. And also Section F talks about training, what type of training you have to really plan for everybody in the company. Then after you make sure that the team have a good understanding of the system, then it's about time to go through the hazard assessment. Or Section B. Section B, I would say, is the heart of the system. In Section B, you need to establish a very good program to make sure that you are identifying all the important hazards that are applicable into your workplace. And also, you should have a clear mechanism to assess the hazards. What I mean by assess is you need to prioritize your hazards based on severity, based on likelihood or occurrence of the risk and hazards. You need to eventually prioritize them and eventually you need to control them. These are all about Section B. Then when you have a good risk register of your hazards, now we can go through the other sections, which is section C, D, E, G, I. There could be established in parallel together. Section C basically talks about all the programs that you need to establish in different areas, like confined space, fall protection, working alone, machine guarding, and so. And other sections that you can guess from the topic talks about everything you need to know and you need to do regarding inspection, investigation, administrative requirement, and eventually emergency response plan. So at the high level, here is my message, is better to always start with section A and H and F to make sure the foundation of the people are okay and we have good support. Then you can go through the other section of the system. So, and I just wanted to end my conversation here with some do's and don'ts that you need to consider. Number one is please make sure that you have the top management uh, is in the same page regarding with you regarding the real benefits of the core OC. Otherwise, maybe they stop their support because it's not a one-time job. You need constant support from the top management team. Another one is please make sure that you develop a comprehensive plan for all the staff. When you go over the questions in the audit tool, you would understand we have lots of areas that you really need help from everybody in the organization. So, and besides, before getting help from everybody, we need to make sure that we equip them with enough knowledge about the safety programs as well. That's why having a comprehensive training plan is very important. Then you need to use a realistic hazard and risk assessment, not just a generic checklist. That is very important. You need to adopt, a good system in place. As I said, hazard assessment is the heart of your system, and you need to really do a good job there. Then you need to involve workers and supervisors in hazard identification as well. Many employers just consider, identifying hazards by a management team or just by the safety officers or safety directors, safety managers. It's not just one man show job. It should be done as a group, and you need to really, really, involve workers, supervisors in each areas to make sure you are not missing any hazards. That's why it's very important to have a type of team approach and involve everybody there. There are also a couple of items that you need to make sure that you always consider to avoid. Number one is please do not rely on the generic templates without proper customization, specifically if MSABC or any other resources that you may decide to use, if they give you a template, please make sure that you customize it, tailor it in a way that really works for you in terms of terminology, in terms of the detail of the mechanism, because each company has its own context, each company has its own culture, and need to make sure the program is really fit for you. Okay. Another important thing is you need to make sure that certification, as I said, is not just a one night or 1 week job, and it's really should be a part of second nature in your company. Okay. So unfortunately, in some cases, we see that employers may consider, the core OC just as an audit season and say that, okay, that we are going to have the audit in October. Everybody should just make sure that we are following everything and so, and the other seasons, maybe they just do whatever they want to do. And for sure, if you have an approach like that, it's very dangerous. It doesn't work. It's all about changing the culture. And cultural change and cultural improvement regarding safety technically means that everybody should look at, the safety programs as their second nature. And eventually, I just wanted to end it with, in many areas, we see that employers are just relying on using PPE, what is not the case in core OC certified companies. PPE, yeah, it's a basic foundation that you need to really apply. But for the high risk hazards, based on outcome of section B, if you have some hazards with high ranked or prioritized, you need to apply other levels of the controls as well, like engineering controls, administrative engineering controls, like designing some engineering objects like machine guarding and so to make sure that you are using a really proactive approach regarding your high risk hazards. So, please make sure if you want to name yourself a core OC company, you need to go deeper and not relying on just PPE as a type of control for your hazards. So these are the main things that I just wanted to share with you, and I just leave it with Wayne to go through the next session. And for sure, right now there might be lots of questions in your mind. Please feel free to share it with us in your Q&A. We are making sure that we answer everything today, or eventually we will send you a full list of the answers and or ideas about your questions. And also, please feel free to keep in touch with us regarding OC page that we have, and we are more than happy to support you in your journey. Thank you very much, Wayne.
Thank you. Thank you, Hassan. Lots of great insights there. Before I hand it over to Odie, there was a question that came in, and it was regarding the threshold, and particularly for clarification. Are you able to let them know that is 80% overall? If how does that work? Just for clarification
Yeah.
point.
Yeah, the way that we design the system is based on weighting average. Each section doesn't have the same, weight because based on the importance of the section, we need to have a specific coefficient. And eventually the system would calculate your overall score. When we say 80, it represents the overall score of the system, not a specific section. For each section, the minimum threshold is 50, and the overall score, which is weighted average, would be calculated by system, and it is 80.
Great. Thank you very much for that clarification, Hassan. I'm having some difficulties with my camera here today, so please, sorry about that. We'll continue on. I wanted to invite Odie to join us. Odie first heard about the COR OC program last year at our Make It Safe in Vancouver. It convinced him to seek information around it and ultimately go towards obtaining the certification. They are still in the progress towards achieving certification, but I'd like to introduce Odie today and then talk a little bit about his journey so far. So, Odie, if you can introduce yourself, that would be great.
Oh, hello. Yes. My name is Oddy, and I'm the VP of Operation for ARTMS. We are a small Canadian company established in Burnaby, and we make electronic mechanical equipment. We call it. It's a two-way delivery system that attaches to cyclotrons, which are a very specific equipments used for production of a active isotope for medical use. So this is our product is used in what is called is the field called target oncology. So it's used um, as a drug for PET imaging, positron emission tomographies. So yeah, I know it's a mouthful. It took me a while to learn what we did here also. But yes, the company was founded in 2013, and yeah, we survived our startup stages, and right now we are commercial, and we are producing the equipment and the consumables that we call solid targets. And yes, and we mostly ship to the US, but also to Europe and Asia. And our company is about 26 employees here in Canada, and we are part of a larger umbrella company, which is Telix Pharmaceutical, which is based out of the US too. And yeah, pretty much it.
Great. Okay, so that's awesome, and again, very unique area on which you're a manufacturer here in BC. Maybe if I could maybe ask a few more clarification questions Oddy, around you attended Make It Safe last year in Vancouver, and that started you on your journey. Can you share what happened and why you decided to pursue the OC and core certification?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, to me, yeah, I attended for the first time, the Make It Safe conference, and was attracted by the presentation from Hassan about the OSSE certification, and then I yeah initially first thing was the benefits that he explained just a little while ago, that these benefits seem attractive. But personally, during 2.5 years ago, when we were acquired by the parent company, I was part of that process, and it was a very demanding process because the acquisition was done, international acquisition of our company, and then during that time, I, I was impressed of how much weight it was done to safety. I thought that pretty much everything before we were acquired, I thought that everything was going to be related to our IPs, intellectual properties, and what we had, and in our financials and our potential of sales, which of course was there. But then during the acquisition process, the making sure that we didn't have anything hidden safety wise, that was a big part of that. So when I attended that conference and I was acquainted with this certification, the OSSE, in my head I said, "Oh, I wish we would have had that before, because that would have made the whole process easier." And so that was how it started. So it was the benefits, but it was that I experienced during the acquisition process, and yeah. Um, I think you're muted, Wayne.
You're, yeah.
I've got too many things going on. So through that process, did you have any previous experience about the core, the Certificate of Recognition Program, or OC?
None, none. The
None.
first time I was exposed to it was during the conference, the Make It Safe conference, and then Hassan explaining it there, and then yes, that was the first time. Yes, I didn't know for certain how comprehensive the certification was out of there, but in subsequent meetings with him, yes, yeah, I got the full picture. So
I, I, I keep muting myself. Please forgive me here. Um, Once you started, was it easier than you expected?
no, the opposite. So two things here. Hassan was great. He's just like he was on that presentation just a little while ago. Very clear, very specific, and he makes an effort to give you context on why the things are needed. And during that baseline audit, what is the intent of the regulatory? That's also always helpful to know what the requirement is coming from. So yes, I thought, oh, this is a great opportunity because we just went through this acquisition and we passed, and we have an established, we already have a safety program, and just getting certified should be, you know a walk in the park. And then when once we started walking, oh no, this is very comprehensive. It's got 9 areas, and then I realized by the second meeting that yes, when we established our safety program, we basically we did it backwards of what Hassan was explaining there. So we, instead of working on management and the team, we basically went directly to the OHS and compliance. And what do we need if we ever audited here? What do we need to have in place? So, and then we put the basics of a safety program. But during the baseline audit with Hassan, okay, so this is more comprehensive, and this is what it should be of a program, which is developing a safety culture in the company, and that's the part that it's kind of lacking here. We have a great team, and I don't doubt that we're gonna achieve a great safety culture, but it's we don't quite have it there, and it was evident during the baseline audit, and now we need to continue to work towards it. Yes.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, and again, I think that, having been in manufacturing for most of my career, that safety culture is that's not something that it doesn't turn a switch. It's something that is developed. It needs, senior leadership, ownership's commitment to it in order to give the safety leaders and the managers the strength to go through the process, right? Because it is a long process, but it is a continuous improvement. If you're a manufacturer, it's a great thing, right? Because
Yes.
every year you audit, you look at what your gaps are, and you look to continuously improve your program. And that's how you develop that foundation of safety culture, building upon it to what Hassan was talking about. This isn't a season of audit. This is a time that we look at this ongoing, and when we look at the programs that we've developed, it's one thing to do that, but it's like ISO, right? It's not one of the things that you take an SOP and you just take it and you put it on the shelf, right? This is something that is active, it's live, it's used all the time, and that's why I like the evidence base of the audit because it requires you to show, do you do what you say you do, right?
Yes.
And that's the reinforcement of the safety culture because when you start to see people taking that on, that's a real critical aspect. I'm going to flip over to Hassan for a moment. It can be, obviously, as we talked about, a little overwhelming when a company is starting their journey for core OC certification. Can you share how long it takes to support companies through this process? Because again, every company's going to be different, right? If you're a micro,
Exactly.
small, or you're a large employer, but can you give them a sense of what it's going to take to get from A through the rest of the elements and be ready for audit?
Yeah, to answer to this question could be any time between 1 month to 1,000 months. Okay, it depends how much time we really would like to dedicate to these efforts. But we always recommend companies to take their time. There is no rush here. They need to make sure, number one, they establish a good and mature program. Then they need to make sure those programs became a type of second nature in their company. Otherwise, if the people just, filling out some checklists and forms just to get rid of the auditor's question, it doesn't help. So from that perspective, it really depends, on as you said, Wayne, how many employees the company has, how many people, can just dedicate their time. But what I can say that in the first 2, 3 months, we need more support from supervisors, from managers, to help, establish the company. But after a while, after 2, 3 months, maybe the curve would be lower a little bit. But eventually, you can consider something between 5 to 6, 7 months, for the average size company to make their system ready. But if you are talking about really micro small, the time could be half. And if you are talking about a really, busy and large company, the time could be even more than 7 to 8 months. But this is the average time that we can see from the experience and feedback that we got from other employers.
Yeah, and I agree with you. It really depends on how organized you can
Yeah,
be.
yeah,
What is your baseline, what you walk in with?
yeah,
If you're starting off the shelf, obviously the manufacturing safety lines, we have a lot of the resources.
yeah.
We can fast track your certification process by giving a lot of those templates, direction, et cetera, helping you get the necessary gaps filled within your program. But to your point, I think it does depend on the size of your operation. Do you have multiple sites? What does your team look like? And ultimately, does management support this? Wholeheartedly, they got to be involved. Odie, I want to go back to the do's and don'ts that Hassan had kind of referenced earlier. He talks about not relying on generic templates, and I'm just kind of, bringing this along to what I just was mentioning. How much work did Artemis put into customizing documentation and information for now in your preparation for core OC?
Yeah, we have yeah, we already have OHS program, and we have forms already in our program, but then and using them. But then during the audit, we realized that some of them were missing some elements, and all the templates and the forms that we use were customized. So we're customized for our internal use, but some of them are missing elements, like or we are inconsistent in some of them, and that came up as one of the deficiencies that we will be correcting and making sure that. And yeah, some of them, like, we do understand that, yeah, we can't just use a cookie cutter for everything there, and that's not the intent. But we do have some nice templates that were provided, in because we're now on the stage, what's it called, stage 4, taking actions, right? So we completed the first 3 steps, so we are in stage 4, and yes, and we have some good templates, just evaluating them, how much of the areas we can use and translate. But definitely, our plan is to customize them to our needs, eventually. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, ownership is key to anything, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So, and it's specific. I mean, you're a very unique manufacturer. You have very unique process, very unique needs, and therefore have unique risk assessments, safe work practices, et cetera, that need to be captured in your program. So that totally makes sense. What were some of the challenges that you've encountered so far?
We are at early stage, but during the audit with Hassan, we yeah, and he noticed it, and we know we are, even though you classify us as a large company, we're not that large. We barely have over 20 employees, and this company, most of our staff is physicists and chemists, and we are just R&D, developing and producing products. So we don't have a dedicated resource for occupational health and safety on site, and we just share it, and we have a joint health and safety committee. So that's the challenge. The challenge is to find time to do both, and dedicate time. But the good thing is that we have a great team, and everybody's on board with the certification. So yeah, the mindset is there.
Yeah, it's tough when it's run off the side of your desk, right? It's
Yes.
not an easy thing, and to keep that focus and that pressure on, particularly is and focus, stay remaining focused. Just quickly before we go to some Q&A from our listeners this morning, I wanted to, Hassan, just kind of flip quickly back to you. What are
Mhm.
some of the or one common thing companies do that make it harder for themselves? I mean, again, they might get into these wormholes and to focus in areas that they may not need to focus, or they look at this
Yeah,
huge elements, stack of elements, and maybe get paralyzed by it. But from your experience, what is one of the common things that
yeah.
make it hard on employers to move forward?
Yes, that's a very good question. One of the common mistakes that I see is many employers just going directly to the program and say, okay, yeah, in order to get core certified, let's just establish fall protection. Let's just establish confined space. Let's just establish WMS and SDSS and so. So, I mean, it's too early to talk about that, to go through that level of the programs. At first, as I said, you need to make sure that you have good support from leadership, you have a good team, and everybody are on the same page. They understand the importance and benefit and outcome of each programs. Then you need to do the hazard assessment, and by hazard assessment you need to make sure that what are the real priorities. So to answer your question, one of the common mistake is we are not really prioritizing that system development phases, and you need to make sure to have the foundation first, then go through the program. And after that, you will find it more easy and also, more productive in the system.
Lastly, Hassan, good points. I mean, what are some of the costs that
Mhm.
that companies and members can expect in this process?
Yes, cost is something that is not so favorable topics, but this is something that we eventually need to consider as part of our journey. As I said, we have a big difference between small businesses and large. And also in terms of the cost, please imagine the direct cost, which means the cost of the auditors that you directly pay to your auditor and cost of the advisory services. We also need to consider indirect cost, like cost of the people, as Oddy mentioned, that they need to dedicate their time regarding their current business. They need to spend extra time for establishing and implementing the system. So from that perspective, first of all, the good news is for a small business, there is no direct cost, almost. What I mean is you don't need to pay anything to auditor. You also don't need to pay anything to advisory services most of the time, unless you need very specific specialized services that you may need to pay. But in general, I would say there is no direct cost for a small business. But definitely we need to consider indirect cost even if you are small, because eventually you need to spend some time to establish and implement a system. But for the large employers, more than 20, whether we like it or not, we need to deal with direct and direct costs. Direct cost is cost of the audit. Cost of the audit generally depends on the amount of time the auditor needs to spend in your workplaces. As you said, it depends on how many sites do you have, how many employees do you have. Just to give you a ballpark figure, for a company of 40 to 50 employees, you can consider something around 5,000 to 6,000 for the cost of the audit. But the good news is that cost is applicable just for the first year. And for the other 2 years, you just need to, do the self-declaration, self-audit by one of your employees, which doesn't come with any cost. This is first good news. And another good news is, in most cases, during your 3 years time period, the cost of the auditor would be mostly covered by the incentive and rebate that you get from WorkSafe BC. Okay, so this is that. But we definitely, even for large employers, when we have some sort of indirect cost, like the cost of the team that you need to really, assign for system development and implementation. That's all, and hopefully, I was able to answer your question this way. Wait.
Yeah, no, that's great. And again, understanding the process through that and then the
Yeah,
costs associated is important for
yeah.
um, people to understand. And one of the things that I do get feedback from many of our OC certified members is that ultimately the real return on the investment is
Mhm.
the safety management system that they have in place, the improvement of culture, and ultimately that does have a direct impact to incidences and
Mhm.
injuries and claims costs. And that's really what it is. We don't want to injure people. We want everyone going home safe. But without a system, without an audited system,
Yeah.
it's hard to pinpoint where you need to spend your time. And I think that's what I really like about the Core OC program is it's a roadmap towards becoming safety successful, right? And
Yeah.
creating a culture of safety and ultimately making sure that you don't just put that safety management system up on the shelf and forget about it, right? That set it and forget it. So the George Foreman grill thing. Probably dating
Mhm.
myself now. All right. Look, we want to get into some questions from people joining us today. So quickly here, thank you again, Odie and Hassan. I'll throw this out to I think this one would be one for Odie. What do you wish you knew before getting started? That's a good one. Careful.
Mm, yeah, no. Um, honestly, well, one thing is that during the audit, one thing that came out is that our industry, a specific area, it wasn't as strong as I thought it was, and because we had developed, standard operating procedures and all that, and then during they are not quite as to the standard, to the OSSE standard, so there is room for improvement. So yeah, that's one thing that came out, and it surprised us, here, and I wish we would have done a better job developing and doing the the hazard assessment and the controls better when we did. But yeah, when we established our program, we jumped to that part directly. That's one of the dons. and we didn't work on developing our team with training. So that's probably one thing that yes we, we missed.
But yeah, I think it's a good point because I mean, look, we all assume we have an understanding of safety and risk
Mhm.
assessments and hazard assessments, but really until you get into
Mhm.
an organization that does this for for a living, this it's important to kind of go, wow, I need to take it a little bit further, right? So
Yes.
interesting. Um, we've talked a lot about creating safety culture. What are some examples of how Artemis is changing and improving or helping direct their safety culture today?
Well, today, right now, as it is, we are just we are operating as we were, because yes, the 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 audit, the pre-audit was just finished about a couple 3 weeks ago, and right now we are working with MSNBC on establishing our training program. I believe that this is going to be the first step, in establishing a training, a safety training culture and program for our resources, and that will be an very important element of solidifying that safety culture for us, and so this is where we are right now. Yeah.
No, that's great. It's just good to know because I mean, you're entering this, you're going through it. It really gives perspective to those people joining us,
Hmm.
the comparison to where they are right now, or maybe they're in their journey already, or they're considering it, right?
Hmm.
And of course, you got to understand some of the pain that you will need to go through. It's necessary pain, but in the end, it certainly does change an organization's overall structure. Um, Hassan, going back to you, when you were talking about the OHS implementation strategy, a question has come in asking if each of these sections or points are weighted differently.
Yes, they are weighted differently.
Okay.
For instance, a section like section C that contains lots of safety programs have more weight than other sections like section D, which is just inspection. So they are weighted differently. And also, they don't need to achieve the full score in all sections to be eligible. As I said, just 50% of the sections could be enough for the beginning. That's why we always thinking about the continual improvement as well. You can just establish the threshold, then plan for improvement by following your action plan and so.
Thank you. The next question kind of made me laugh. It seems like a Gen Z question, maybe, but can a company earn potential partial scores if they have provisions for certain items to occur but haven't yet got to the point of implementing them? For example, if provisions in the OHS program require the Joint Health and Safety Committee to meet regularly, but they don't actually have a meeting that have meeting minutes to show for each month, which again, you need to have that. Um, if you're kind of on the way there, right?
Mhm.
Do you get
Yeah.
partial?
Yeah, that's a great point. The point is, we for sure we go over all those details in the free workshop that I said with anyone who is interested to really start using wanted to start this checklist and so. But to have a quick answer to this question, yeah, the answer is yes. There is possibility to consider partial score for some of the questions, not to all of them. Basically, we have two option scores, or in some cases, we have a sliding scale. And the system would allow you to consider a number between 0 to 5 or a number between 0 to 10 in some questions. Yeah, in some questions, you have options to consider partial score. For others, you just need to consider 0 or 5, 0, 10, and so. It depends what type of questions. But in general, yeah, the answer is yes.
So Hassan, maybe we got some folks here that have already achieved core OC and they're a little bit mature in the process. You know, what would be your recommendation for them? Because one of the things we do track is obviously, um, as an organization that is a certifying partner, we in past, once you became core OC or OC certified, we kind of said you've reached the top of the mountain and we let you go and we assume that you're going to be perfect from that point on. Can you speak maybe just briefly around what some of the challenges are once you've reached the top of the mountain and what
Mhm.
kind of recommendations you would give them on their path after successful certification.
Yeah, when you achieve your certification, one of the most challenges, as I said, is all about continual improvement. Having the certification is not your destiny. It is just first milestone. What your destiny and your destination is really, far, far away, and you just need to pass lots of milestones. One of the challenge that I see, and I always recommend all the current OC certified company to consider, is they just really need to take the action plan and following the action plan really seriously. And right now, our policy is to focus more on following up the action plan with all the current certified companies and make sure that they are really closing the actions. Because, in many cases, unfortunately, we see that companies say that, okay, we already have our certificate, so everything is good. So if you really want to achieve the real benefit of the core OC, which is lower injury rates and others, you need to really improve your system by the time. That is one of the challenges that I see. Focus and continue on your action plan. That is my main recommendation here.
Yeah, that's such a good point. And one of the things I would say inversely, if I mean we're all bent towards looking at the score. I got 85, I got
Yeah,
95, right?
yeah,
But from a action plan standpoint and from a continuous improvement standpoint, you really want to look at the points you didn't get, right?
yeah,
And that is the focus. Why did I not get points, or how did we not
yeah,
achieve, or what gaps are in my safety programs that I need to? And I know for
yes,
myself, even for our organization, we're OC certified. And I look at our action plan, and it's important that even I endorse and write a path forward for our organization and proclaim as the leader, hey, yeah, this is our path. And even as a safety organization, we are in a constant state of continuous improvement, right? We went from one risk
yeah,
to a whole different risk as an organization after the
true.
pandemic, right? We all went home, and for our organization, most of our folks are in the field, but we have a large part of our organization that still work remotely. And so we took the risk of going and traveling to and from work every day to now you're working
Hmm.
from home, right? Working alone,
Exactly.
potentially, right? That's a different risk, requires a different kind of thinking. So, really interesting. I want to give for one more question here, if I can, as we're coming down to the top of the hour. Could you, Hassan, elaborate on the ERP module of CORE?
Is a little bit of challenging question to be answered in a few minutes,
Okay. Well, do you have a short version, and we can always get back to who?
Yeah, but the concept is not that hard. This section is talking about all the emergencies that you have to identify in your workplace. Then you have to plan what you're gonna do if any of those emergencies, in some cases occurred, in your system. So this is all about section E. You just need to make sure all the emergencies have been answered and addressed in the right way there. Yeah.
And I think this is becoming more important as we look forward. I mean, many of our members have manufacturing facilities and facilities that are in flood areas, fire areas, et cetera. I mean, when we look at some of these ECP plans, right, or ERP plans, right, we need to
Yeah.
understand the impact. We could be cut off, we could be
Hmm.
enveloped in a fire, right? We could have a closed community. So again, there's just new maybe threats. Maybe they were always there, but we just didn't really think about them. So,
Yeah.
but we can provide more information for anyone with regards to additional questions or wanting more information from Hassan on that. Um, Odie and Hassan, I want to really thank you for taking time and sharing, especially for you, Odie. I mean, unique manufacturing business, small, but nonetheless, how your journey is maybe similar to that of the journey of other people is important to share. And I really appreciate you taking time, and I'm glad that you found value in our Make It Safe and our programs. And thank you for joining us today. Hassan, as always, Hassan has been an auditor in different auditing levels around the world, and does bring a tremendous amount of experience in this level. So if you have any questions, please do reach out to the OC department, and Hassan and the team can definitely answer any of your questions as you go forward. Just a few announcements before I end today's session. A reminder, that early bird savings end next week for our April's Make It Safe Okanagan as we prepare to see many of you next week in on Vancouver Island in Nanaimo, March 31st. April 23rd is the date for Kelowna, so please do take advantage of the early bird pricing. Watch for a link today to the recording of today's webinar, and please share us your feedback or topic ideas. That's what we need. Other relevant topics that you would need us to bring, and we'll bring the people in to share some of those best practices. So again, look forward to seeing you at our next webinar. And if you do need any help, please don't hesitate to reach out to the Safety Alliance as our team continues to grow and is placed all around the province to better serve